You're listening to Unpacked, the Truth About Hoarding, a podcast that goes beyond the mess to explore the heart, humanity, and healing behind hoarding disorder. Hosted by Matt Williams.
All right. Welcome back to Unpacked, the Truth About Hoarding. I'm your host, the commonly named Matt Williams, coming to you live from high above the Rockwellian Main Street of Irwin, Pennsylvania. And today, I'd like to talk about something that may seem completely unrelated to hoarding disorder: forgiveness. So you may be wondering, what does forgiveness have to do with clutter? And at first, I didn't think it had anything to do with it either, until I started noticing something. The people that I work with aren't just carrying possessions, they're carrying memories, they're carrying disappointment, they're carrying guilt, they're carrying grief, sometimes they're carrying resentment, and sometimes they're carrying things that happened decades ago. And I've come to believe that human beings are remarkable at carrying weight. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes emotional, but most of the time it's both. So many of you know, especially those of you who listened to our pilot episode, know that years before I ever started Fight the Blight, my father was murdered. And for a long time, I thought forgiveness meant pretending that what happened didn't matter. I thought forgiveness somehow excused the person who caused the pain. So I resisted it. Why should I forgive? Why should I let someone off the hook? But then one day, in a powerful experience, I realized that I wasn't holding them prisoner. I was holding myself prisoner. So resentment, it's strange. It convinces us that if we keep carrying it, we're somehow honoring what happened, but we're not. We're simply allowing yesterday to keep stealing from today. And as I began speaking with people living with hoarding disorder, I noticed something familiar. Many of them were carrying that same invisible weight, not necessarily the same experience, but the same heaviness. Maybe someone betrayed them. Maybe they lost someone they loved, or maybe they grew up believing they weren't enough. Maybe they blamed themselves for something that happened years ago. The details were different, but the burden felt very familiar. And one thing I've learned is that forgiveness isn't always about another person. Sometimes the person we need to forgive is ourselves. I've sat with people who've said, I've ruined my house, I've ruined my family, I've ruined my life. Imagine telling yourself that every morning. Imagine believing it. Shame becomes something you carry just like a heavy box. And eventually you forget what it feels like to even set it down. One of the things I love most about our support groups is that they don't begin with organizing. They begin with understanding the person. We don't ask people to change, especially immediately. We ask them to become curious about themselves, about their stories, curious about why certain decisions feel impossible. And around the fourth or fifth week, something beautiful usually happens. Someone will stop in the middle of a sentence and say, I never thought about it like that before. I think I finally am starting to understand. Not because I told them, not because another facilitator convinced them. It's because they discovered it. And that is a huge difference. People rarely change because someone gives them an answer. People change because they discover the answer. And that's why peer support is so powerful. Everyone in that room has arrived at hoarding from a different road. One person's struggle began with grief, another with perfectionism, another's with creativity, and others with overwhelming generosity. Different roads, same destination. And that means they can help each other see things that I never could. One person shares their story and suddenly someone across the room says, I thought I was the only one. And that's one of my favorite moments, because shame can't survive very long once someone realizes that they aren't alone. So what does all this have to do with forgiveness? Everything. Forgiveness is letting go of something that has been hurting you. Not because it wasn't important, or not because it didn't happen, not because someone earned it, but because you deserve peace. And maybe that's true for the person holding on to resentment just as much as it's true for the person holding on to a room full of possessions. Sometimes the first thing that we have to let go of isn't an object, it's the belief that we'll never heal. The television shows out there want you to believe healing happens in a weekend or in an episode, and I've never seen that happen. Healing usually begins much more quietly, with a conversation, with someone listening, with someone asking what happened instead of what's wrong with you. That's why this podcast exists. So not to tell you what to think, but to help all of us, myself included, unpack the things that we've been carrying for far too long. So thank you for spending this time with me, and until next time, be kind to yourself, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply put down one thing we've been carrying. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to Unpacked, the truth about hoarding. For more information or support, visit fighttheblightinc.com. We'll see you next time.